Okay, welcome back, friends. This is Grace Filled Grits, episode number 115, A Military Wife Pursuing Joy Through Deployments. Today, we are chatting with my good friend, Samantha McCoy, all about patriotism and military life. She is a wife, nurse turned stay-at-home mom, as well as the Pursuing Joy podcast host. I invited her on the show today so she can give us a glimpse into the day-to-day life of our honored military families. Welcome, Samantha. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Lana. I'm so excited to be a part of your podcast. What an honor.
Yes, we're so glad to have you. So tell our friends a little bit about your family's military journey, and of course, start with the good stuff of how you met your husband.
I met my husband in high school. We just our friends were friends. And so we were acquaintances starting in high school. And then we hung out maybe like a handful of times. And before he went to flight school, I guess that was when we were like 22 probably.
Mhm.
And he was always super nice. We never like hung out a whole bunch, but he was just kind of around. And then he went to flight school in Alabama. He came home. And during that time, we both got rebaptized and our faith was just growing like crazy. And when he got home from flight school, he was trying to find a home church. And so he was visiting the church that I was going to. And we just kind of clicked there. I saw him and I was like, oh, Mason. And so I reached out to him. We started dating and we've been together ever since. And that was really my first experience with military life. Has been with him. Nobody in my family is military, so it was a whole new world. It still is. We've been together for 7 years, and married 4.5. So I'm still learning so much within the military world. It's definitely very different. In some ways it's similar because so many jobs are demanding and travel wise. So I know that tons of families go through one or both parents traveling a lot. So there's a lot of that with military. And it's been an experience. It's been an adventure. And we are very blessed with it. He loves his job. He loves what he does. And I love being able to support him. And we really enjoyed it. So we're both very grateful for the opportunity to be in the military world.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I know that you've had several different journeys, and you're in the process of moving again. So how many times have you moved since you've been married?
We have not. This is our first move.
So this is your first deployment. Okay.
Yeah. Well, so first, they're called PCS, permanent change of station.
Gotcha.
Why I don't understand because they're temporary, but so this is our first PCS and we leave in July. So he's been in the reserves and he just went active duty within the reserves 3 years ago. So now we will be moving as long as he remains active duty. So
gotcha.
Yes, we are about to venture off into our first PCS, and we're just kind of in the packing, selling the house stage. So,
wow, that's exciting. So tell us then what you have ahead, if you're comfortable sharing. So you're going to be going to another city, but just for a short time, right?
Yep. So we go down to Alabama for 2.5-ish months for Mason to complete some training down there. And then we are able to go with him because I'm a stay-at-home mom and I have that flexibility. So we're going to go down there. I don't think the kids would do great being away from him since he was just deployed for a year. So we're going with him down there. And then from there we go to California and we'll be out there for 3-ish years. And
wow.
Then continue on.
Yeah, that's just amazing. And so you've already been through a deployment where you've been here, where you're at, but he left for how long?
So we've been through 2 deployments. We dated for 5 months, and then he went to Afghanistan for 9 months. And then within that year of him being home, we got engaged and married. We were like, you know what? We've been through a deployment. think we're good.
Right, right.
So we went through that deployment, and I was a girlfriend then. And then he just left, or he just got home back in September, and he had been gone for a year. So we were married, and when he left, I was just entered my third trimester, and our son was 15 months old. So
Oh,
this was a
wow.
totally different experience.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So tell me a little bit about how it's different. Well, and I guess you didn't have kids before you were in this military thing, but what are the challenges of raising little ones? And yours are still pretty little, right? So
Yes.
tell our friends here online how old your kiddos are.
Cooper will be 3 in July, and then Mila is a year and a half. So they're
Okay.
17 months apart. Were you asking how different?
Yeah, yeah. Is it a struggle to raise the kiddos when dad is gone on a deployment? I'm sure it is. I mean, I know my husband, was a fireman and he would only be gone 24 hours. And it's like, okay, that's the point where someone would need stitches or the car would break down. I mean, it only happened on shift days when he was at the fire station. And when I think of as a military mom, just, days and days and months on end. Lord have mercy. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah, it's definitely. I never thought that I would be in that place. We always talk. I was like, hey, I don't think that we're gonna have, like, back when we were dating, and engaged. We're like, I don't want to have kids during deployment. That I don't know how people do that. I don't think that I could do that. And then here we are.
Yeah.
So I know that God has a sense of humor for that. I thought that in my life.
Right.
Like, oh, you just wait. Um, so I think it is very different from the standpoint of having military kiddos and them being gone for so long. You really get into a mindset of, okay, I do as a parent, because my children were so young, they couldn't comprehend time. So they did
Right.
not know what was going on except that dad was gone, and
Right.
FaceTime was the only way to communicate with him. I think even when he is home, he still travels for 3 week trips or trainings or whatever for work. So we still have to go through that. And I honestly think that any amount of time where routines get kind of messed up, or somebody leaves and then they come back and then there's a disruption in the routine, is always hard. I know that I have friends whose husbands are gone Monday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, and even
Mhm.
that can be a disruption in life. So I think the military part of it is interesting because it is such an extended amount of time. The first deployment was 9 months, and this last one was a year. And the beginning, I don't know how else to describe it. When I'm in it, it feels like a mourning phase where, like, I'm mourning him not being here for
Mhm.
birthdays, anniversaries, the weekend, things like that. I'm not going to have my husband here for that. And for myself, the first couple of days of deployment I'm a hot mess. I am a
Mhm.
wreck. I am tear stained on my face. Like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to get off the couch. Just very depressed. Like, oh my gosh. And then give me a couple of days and I'm up and ready to roll. And
Yeah.
so I think it is that mindset that I have to put myself in, like, hey, you have kids, you got to, like, pull it together. You got to be present for
Mhm.
them. And then I get into the mindset of, like, hey, what can I do during the deployment to better myself? And there's fun ways to stay connected to a military member when they're gone, especially with the gift of technology and being able to
Mhm.
FaceTime. That was a gift for the kids to be able to do that. I thought of lots of different things to do prior to Mason leaving, like recording his voice in a teddy bear so Cooper could hear his voice,
Mhm.
books about dad. And the military has this really cool reading programs where the soldier or military member can build essentially a library for their kids if they want to, and they'll have a reading room and they can record themselves reading a book for their kiddo, and then the book is, like, automatically for free sent to the kid, so the kid can
Ah,
read along and see their mom or dad reading the book. So Mason did that quite a bit when he was gone, and that way Cooper had a chance to have mom or dad put him to bed with a book, which was kind of a break for me at times, and it warmed my heart to hear Mason and see Mason. So Yeah, I think the amount of time that they can be gone, yes, it's a disruption, but it's also adjusting to a new norm. And within a deployment, there are many new norms to adjust to based on where the military member is and whether they're stateside or in a different country. I mean, he was 9 hours ahead of us. So that plays into it too. But it is very different. There's a lot of times I think that I'm like the memory maker for the family and just making sure that we have memories for leading up to deployment. So right now, there's no deployment on the horizon that I know of. So this is a new
Thank you,
stage.
Jesus.
Yes. So this is a new stage for me because I don't have a deployment looming over us that we're waiting for. We haven't been that way since we've been together. So just kind of enjoying normalcy until we move.
Until you move, right? Oh, wow. What an amazing lifestyle that is, and how strong you have to be to, just the pressures of keeping everyone all tied together. That's just, that's amazing. Yeah. And like I said, I have this little tiny glimpse of it, and I can't imagine a full year of that. What you've done is just amazing. So obviously, like, the patriotism is ingrained in the DNA of your family and the services and what he's giving, what you as a family, and your kiddos. How does this look different in this day and age in 2023 than you think it did maybe for military families in the past? I know you mentioned some Zoom, or not Zoom meetings, but FaceTime and some of the technology. That has to be a huge benefit for them to be able to have that connection.
Yeah, I definitely, for the family back home and for the military member overseas, if it's a deployment or if they're stationed somewhere else, being able to see their face, hear their voice is very comforting. And I'm super grateful for it. I have no idea how military wives, spouses, family members went through war without that technology. I think about that all the time, like, oh yeah, I would not have done well back in that, like just waiting for a letter to come through, or even 10, 15 years ago, waiting for an email to come through, or, something like that. But I also wonder if that instant communication, because I could text with him and call him on FaceTime and stuff, but I wonder if that sometimes can be very stressful for the military service member, because they have this expectation of being present at home when they're at war. Yeah. And they have a whole other life and a whole other time zone going on around them. And what a gift that is to be able to be present, quote unquote present, at home through technology, but also dealing also with the day-to-day life of their families back home, while also dealing with war and not being able a lot of times to share what's going on. I feel like a lot of the soldiers I know don't want to talk about that. That's like talking with their family is that moment to kind of separate from it, because of it. When they're deployed, they're surrounded by it 24/7. So I think there's definitely pros and cons to it. And us being back home, the family I think it's always a pro for us.
Right.
So I'm always curious of that for the service member, if it's maybe a little stressful for them. But there's really unique ways. Mason and I did the 5 love languages, and they have the military edition
Gary
one.
Chapman. Okay, yes.
And so that really helps in the first deployment and the second, just to be able to speak each other's love languages when we're not around each other all the time. And care packages are a great way to do that. I would, send him stuff, and he would send stuff back and from the countries that he was in. So being able to have those times, and letters written home and vice versa. So, you just kind of got to be creative.
Right.
In my experience.
Yes.
Keeping that connection.
So did you find yourself, this was just not a planned question, but just thinking through my, CJ being gone on 24-hour shifts, I found myself, I had to make a click in to when I do chat with him, I don't I'm positive. I'm not going down the list of things that just broke and went wrong today, and trying to kind of shield him from he's, if it's a big deal, if one of the kids needs to go to the emergency room or something, he could come home because he was in town. But outside of, the one or two times, ever in his career, pretty much I didn't share a lot of the bad things going on that would happen. And I'm like, okay, he can just deal with this when he gets home. Have you found yourself kind of doing the same or yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I kind of felt like that was my duty a little bit, like, hey, not to sugarcoat everything, but to just be like, hey, Q, I know you've got enough. And he was in a leadership role overseas. So I was like, I know you're stressed to the max. You have basically no days off. So yeah, I definitely did the same thing. Tons of stuff. I made a list in my phone of all the things that broke while he was gone, all the stuff that I learned how to fix, all the things I learned how to mow the grass. And but so I definitely tried to not clue him in on everything. But if it was a hard day with the kids, I'd be like, I'm losing it over here. Like, this is such a hard day, because I knew that he would be able to like pick me up with something, but even though he couldn't physically be here to fix something. So yes, I definitely found myself doing the same.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I mean, yeah, we learn what we can share and what we can, and at what point, because they're, even though the guys seem like they're less emotional, they it wears on them if they want to fix everything, and so I figured that was the case.
It's hard. You have to get in the groove of that, because it's hard at the beginning because you're so used to calling them and being dependent on them. And it's really hard to kind of be like, okay, now who can I rely on here? And it's a learned thing, I think, for each deployment.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, if you're comfortable, going into your faith journey, what did that look like in that year that he was gone and you're home, and you're a stay-at-home mom and your husband's deployed? What was your faith like during that time frame?
So I will say that during both deployments, my faith grew exponentially in both. And I correlate that to being dependent on God way more during those times, because my husband was not around. So at night, I didn't have, Mason and I couldn't talk. He was asleep, like, or, our schedules were opposite. So, or he was just getting to work. Anyways, I depended on God a lot more. I talked to God a lot more. I prayed a lot more. I had more time just to spend with God. And that helped me grow my faith. We were a couple months into being in a new church when Mason left last, and I stayed plugged in. I got into a mom's group, and that was huge. And then we had gone to one couples group, the two of us. And then after that, we met monthly. After that, he was gone for the deployment, and I kept going by myself. So I continued going the whole time that Mason was gone. And Mason's super social, so when he got back, he just like picked up with all of them. No big deal. So I think plugging into church, like not stopping, not being like, oh, well, I'm too nervous to go to church or to join a small group. Like, what a blessing those things are. Even if they have no experience military wise, people love to support those that are at home and service members deployed, and especially having them be faith-based and being in small groups with them, that was huge for me. So my faith grew definitely both times in wonderful ways. So that I definitely spent time pouring into that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that, that's always the answer to the hard times. And I figured that was the case for sure. So your kiddo, your oldest son he's 3. And then, and you will be having a couple moves, and you think you'll be in California in your next location for a couple of years, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So do you, tell me what your plans are. I know, back in my day when people were in the military, I'm quite a bit older than you. People would, go and be on, move towards a base and have a different location and they would get schooled there. So tell me what your plans are, for your education. Or are
That's a
you,
great
I mean, you
question.
might, it's very early, so you might not have, be dialed in on that yet, but I'm guessing as a
I
mom, you probably are.
I am dialed in. To be honest, we haven't really made a firm decision in that. Homeschooling was something I never thought that I would do, and it looks more and more appealing nowadays. So, especially with the kids being so young when we do these next couple of moves, just to have that stability school wise, they're both
Mhm.
very social kids. So, I mean, staying involved in extracurricular activities, I don't know. I'm leaning towards homeschooling, but TBD. Ask me when we get
Yes.
out to California in a couple of years. But yeah, I don't know. The difference with going out to California and my husband being in the reserves, even though he's active duty, is that we don't always go to a base.
Mhm.
So we probably won't live on base when we're out there.
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess there's a chance that there's an Air Force base maybe that we could. So then, yeah, then that education, we
Right.
would take a look at that. So kind of up in the air at this point in regards to which way we're going to go. But
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like
I've wanted,
so many parents, they're like, I don't want to homeschool. And, that wasn't a thought. And now it's,
yeah,
there's some options. And I didn't homeschool my kiddos. Mine went to private school, private Christian school, and then they went to public. And
yeah,
we had, well, obviously there was major issues with public school, but I do think there's benefits to all of it. There's,
oh yeah,
a lot of it falls on the parent and
yeah,
how they're raised up. So I think
yeah,
everyone has a different path with that, and God will lead each family differently. So I was just curious at what the kind of thing is now with the military families, because it was back in the day, many years, 20, 30 years ago, it was kind of a standard process that if you lived on base, you went to school on base, that type of thing. So I know there's just a lot of different options these days, which is nice to have some options to look at. So I
yeah,
think
yeah.
that's good.
I know families that do both. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we shall see.
Yes, yes. So tell me a little bit about if the military, and maybe it's led by military or maybe it's not. Are there any, when you do these moves, are there any women's wives groups that, help each other out and support each other? Or are you kind of, you know, still with technology, you can be tied back to your hometown and your family and your friends. I know that has got to be a huge blessing, but still,
Yeah.
I would think there would be some kind of groups. Are there any out there?
So yes, there's usually a support group for different bases and different units. So I actually just got in contact. Military One Source is like a wonderful resource for military families, and I had a call with one of the consultants last week and basically told her all the things I wanted to know, and she sent me an email of all the contacts to reach out to and flyers and all that information. So I just haven't talked to them. I've joined groups for the base down in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So I will definitely, even though we'll be there for a short amount of time, I still want to like be involved and meet other military families. So I think that is the beauty of the military life. And when you do move, granted this is our first move, but there are support groups and things like that for family members and spouses of the military members to be able to, if you want to be able to
Right.
connect and have that support there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I found like a play group that meets a couple times a week that's down in Alabama. So I was like, I would love to do that and have the kids
Oh,
meet some other little kids and meet other moms. So yeah, I think you can be as involved as you want to be, which is
yeah.
kind of nice.
That is nice. That is nice. I assume they did have that. I love to hear that there are opportunities for you to connect and for people to take care of you, and you can
Yes,
pass that on to others as they come in too. So I love
yes.
that. So for those of us, that are just the civilians that, we love this country and we see the service and, look at our lives and compare that, with our just little inconveniences. If a husband's traveling or something, and we're in awe and wonder of, what you do, especially, when your spouse is on deployment. How can we support you? If one of our listeners just is, wanting to know, or they have a close family member that, is on deployment, what do you suggest for them to support those families that they are close to that has someone on deployment?
Yeah, I would say definitely reach out, ask them how their service member is doing, how they're doing. I think a lot of times we are told, speaking for myself personally, we get told, you're so strong, you're so strong. And I really had friends in church a lot and outside of church that would ask, how are you really doing? And, what's been a struggle, and kind of having open-ended questions instead of just like, how's it going? You doing okay? And just allowing for that person to kind of open up, because it is hard. And do not be like, oh, thank goodness it's not 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I feel like when Mason was getting ready to leave, a lot of people tried to, and past members of the military would be like, oh, well, when I went over, it was horrible and all this. And
Yeah.
I got it. Like, there's still that ache in my heart that's like, man, he's going over to a war zone.
Right.
So you just have the underlying fear. And I think that that's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot. You just kind of live with it. Nobody wants to bring it up because they don't want to bring their worries and fears onto you. Other people are awkward at bringing it up. So maybe don't, if you're like a very close or trusted person or friend with this, whoever is going through this, then I think, yes, bring that up. But if you're not super close, maybe don't bring it up. Just asking about any fears that they have or anything that they want to talk about. Again, being able to allow them to open up about that. And then if they have children and it's their significant other that is gone, please watch the children, like come over, offer a break, because as I won't speak for all, but I know most that I know have a very hard time asking for help. Right. And it's very uncomfortable because we don't want to seem like we are a burden or that we really need help, but we do. So if you know somebody, ask to watch their children come over and like do a play date or bring dinner over or something. A meal was huge when we were going through the deployment. Someone coming over and bringing over a meal was amazing. So those are great ways. And then helping them remember things like anniversaries. If you have like a close friend and their person is deployed, it's like, hey, I know it's your anniversary. Can I take you out to dinner? Or my parents took me out to dinner.
What a good idea. Oh, I love that.
So, or birthdays or whatever, they don't have their special person there, and whatever relationship that is, they don't have them there, and they're probably used to them being there. So just celebrating along with them, and also having conversations about when that member gets home and returns home, kind of what that is, because that can be kind of awkward at times. Just in regards to what are the expectations in visiting and seeing them, and how can we best support you, and if they do have kiddos, like offering to stay the night so they can have a weekend together to reconnect. That's like really important for couples to be able to have that time with the family, but also to reconnect as well. So I think those are my big takeaways, being 8 months out from a deployment.
Yeah. Well, and that's so interesting, because I would never think about that after they're home. So I'm so glad you brought that up, because we always think about, okay, help with the kids or help with the lawn, or, those kinds of things, with food, or, Uber Eats gift card or something. But, after they're home, there's an adjustment time there. And so that's a good time and you want to ask before the military member gets home on how can I help you? What would be? Do you want more help, or do you want us just to all go away for a month? Which is it?
Yes, correct. I think you'll see both sides. I know that some of the guys that Mason came home with, they were like ready to go out and be social and go to all these events, and others were like, hey, I just want reserved time with my family. And we're like, hey, we'll see you in a couple weeks. So it differs per family, but it is a conversation to be had, because I think some people do like, hey, oh my gosh, we're so excited, we want, and totally get that.
Right.
And I think that goes back to love languages, because mine's personal time and our quality time. And so not being able to have that for that entire year was really hard. So I think it just depends on the individual and the family and what they're expecting and what the expectation is if they're married to the spouse or for the spouse.
That's a great thing to keep in mind that I would not have thought of. So I'm glad you brought that up. So I know during this last year, as you're adjusting, to him coming off of a deployment, you started a podcast. So tell us a little bit about it. I know, you had said that there was some fear that you had to overcome before you started it. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. I just love it.
So I started Pursuing Joy. It was something that was on my heart for years and years and years. It was after Mason and I got married, I quit my job and we went and traveled and volunteered. And I thought that God really placed it on my heart, even before I quit my job, that, hey, I want you to share about this. And so that really scared me. It took me a really long time to overcome the fear of sharing my faith publicly. I think especially in today's world. And so it has taken a lot, but I started it. I'm like 13 episodes in. I absolutely love being able to talk to people, to encourage people through the Bible and through Jesus, like just to pursue joy in life. And when I thought about what I wanted to do for the podcast, I met with a woman and she was like, so what do you want to do? I was like, I don't know. I just know that God keeps putting on my heart, so I got to figure it out. And in that conversation, she made me realize that when we spent that year traveling and volunteering, that my key takeaway from that was, yes, to serve others, and serve with your spouse and serve with the ones that you love. But the joy that we were able to give to others, if we got back tenfold. And I feel like sometimes we think that that's selfish for us to feel good that we did something good. And my viewpoint of that is so different now. I'm like, that's such a gift from God that he is like, man, job well done. Like that, to me, that is joy that he gives us, that we receive from loving him and through loving others and being the hands and feet of Jesus. So I just wanted to do a podcast that was about that, about pursuing joy and how we can love God and love people in bold ways, and both recognize the joy that we give through that and the joy that we receive through that. So definitely a lot of fear in starting it and finding my voice and my comfortableness just with all that. But it's been wonderful. It has truly blessed me. I've spent so much more time with God, and just intentional time, especially in the mornings. And as a mom with two young ones, like that time, well, if I do it, makes my day, like starts it off on such solid ground. So I have loved it. It's been a blessing in my life to start pursuing joy. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it.
I love that. And what a beautiful picture of your faith that, you come out of basically being a single mom for, a year during the deployment and all the struggles of missing, your spouse and the worries and all of that. And you come out with, a joy podcast. I mean, what a beautiful picture that is of, of your heart and, what your mission is. So I love it. I love it. I can't thank you and your family enough for, your service to the country, you and him both.
Thank you.
And, I appreciate you sharing some of those tips of what those of us that, are here wanting to help others that we know of, help us through on what exactly, you gave us some very practical things that we could do. So thank you so much for coming on. What a joy. We will definitely link to your podcast and your Instagram. It's beautiful. I encourage friends here online to go subscribe to her podcast and follow her online. We'll put those links in the bio. You're just a joy, and I appreciate you coming on. And, this
Thank
summer,
you so
as
much.
we are just, pouring into all the 4th of July and all the patriotic holidays, or, start the summer, end the summer, all the things. We just truly appreciate what you're doing. So, and I look forward
Thank
to
you.
hearing more about your journeys this fall. So, and we'll have you on again. I love chatting with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lana. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks.